The Beast. By J.W. Steele. The beast had no name. No one had ever given him one. He was a thing of legend, a shadow on the moors, a terror whispered about in taverns after too much ale. He had lived for centuries, alone, shunned, and unseen, until the night he stumbled upon her, on the flickering television screen, in the ruins of his old farmhouse. It was there, beneath the cold eye of the moon, that he saw her. A woman, luminous and radiant, her voice like liquid gold. She spoke with poise, eyes dancing with intelligence as she delivered the evening news. He didn't understand everything she said, but it didn't matter. She was beauty itself. For the first time in his long and desolate existence, he felt something stir within him. A longing, like one he'd never known. Every night, he returned to that broken farmhouse, watching her through the static-laced glow. He memorized the curve of her lips, the way her brows arched when she read something troubling, the cadence of her laughter when the cameras caught her off guard. He had never wanted anything in his life, but now, he wanted her. And so, the beast set out to find her. The city was a maze of noise and movement, nothing like the silent hills where he had roamed. People gasped, screamed, and fled at the sight of him. He barely noticed. He had only one destination, the towering glass studio where she worked. When he arrived, security descended upon him like wolves. He did not fight them. He only had one request. "I want to see her." And so they let him, though only for a moment. She stood there in the lobby, her beauty striking him like a blade. But when she saw him, she recoiled. Her perfect lips parted in horror. You're a beast," she whispered. He reached for her, not to hurt her, but to plead. "I love you." She shook her head. "How could you think that? Look at you." Something inside him shattered. He turned in despair, knowing he would always be alone. The beast wandered the streets aimlessly, the weight of rejection pressing upon him heavier than any wound he had ever endured. The world blurred, the lights and sounds of the city turning into an unintelligible haze. For reasons he could not understand, he turned down an alley. Then, through the murk of his sorrow, he heard a voice. "Lost, are you?" An old woman sat on a stoop, her eyes the color of storm clouds. She smelled of sage and earth, of secrets whispered between the stars. A psychic, she claimed to be. "I loved someone," the monster admitted, his voice raw. "She did not love me." The old woman nodded as if she had seen this before. "You do not know yourself," she told him. "Love, true love, does not beg for approval. You seek validation, not affection." "Then, what must I do?" She handed him a small bundle of dried herbs, tied with twine. "Drink this every night. It will reveal your true self. But remember, my friend, you can never be more than you are, and you are perfect." Desperate, the monster obeyed. Each night, he took the potion, feeling it weave through his being like fire and ice. Slowly, his gnarled hands grew smooth. His hunched form straightened. The rough blue of his skin melted into something softer, more human. Days turned into weeks, and by the time he looked at his reflection in a shop window, he was no longer a beast. He was beautiful. The people who had once feared him now turned their heads to admire him. Women smiled as he passed, their gazes lingering. He had become what he once dreamed of, a man worthy of love. And so, one evening, he stood outside the television studio once more. He did not need to demand an audience this time. The doors opened easily for someone like him. She emerged, radiant as ever, and when she saw him, her breath caught. He could see it in her eyes, the immediate, effortless attraction. "Who are you?" she asked, her eyes shining. He smiled. "A man who has loved you from afar." Her cheeks flushed. "Would you like to get a drink?" For a moment, the world seemed to pause. He could have said yes. He could have taken her hand, kissed her under the city lights, and lived out the fantasy that once seemed so impossible. But something had changed. He no longer needed her love. He no longer needed anyone's. He looked at her, really looked at her. And he saw not the goddess he once worshipped, but a woman, ordinary, fallible, as imperfect as anyone else. She had never truly seen him, not when he was a beast, and not now. Her love was conditional, shallow, given only to those who fit a certain mold. And he had outgrown that. "I will always love you," he said, his voice gentle. "But you will never be worthy of my heart." She blinked, confusion flickering across her face, but he did not stay to explain. He turned and walked away, his footsteps steady, his thoughts lighter than they had ever been. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fire and dusk. The city hummed behind him, but he did not look back. For the first time. The beast. No, the man. Was finally free.